AMN DriveTime is sponsored by Aishin, your trusted and reliable source for aftermarket automotive components and technology. Visit AishinAftermarket.com for more information.
Emily, welcome to AMN DriveTime, sponsored by our great friends at Aishin.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. This is your event to some degree, right?
Yes.
For the benefit of our audience, we are in Greater Detroit at 2026 MEMA Vision Conference.
Correct.
And we're just glad to have you with us for a few minutes, because I'm sure you got a lot of places to be.
One or two things. Yes.
All right. So, Emily, to get started, you spent 27 years with Bridgestone and led 2 different business units that were global and data-driven, right? How are you bringing those experiences into your role as president of MEMA Aftermarket?
So yeah, I had a great 27-year career at Bridgestone, a lot of opportunity to do some very exciting things while I was there. Thought I was on a path to a nice early retirement, and then Paul McCarthy called me one day and said, hey, how would you like to consider coming and joining MEMA, which I was very familiar with MEMA, having been on the member side for 15 years or so during my time at Bridgestone. And you know, the more Paul and I talked about it, the more it sounded like a great opportunity for me to stay connected in an industry that I'm very passionate about.
Right.
So I think what I'm bringing to the table, to get back to your question, is experience. I've been there. I've actually led a global manufacturing business servicing the vehicle market. I'm very familiar with both the OE and the aftermarket side of things. I understand the challenges, the struggles, the excitement of being a business leader, and I've been in the shoes of our members that we are serving today. So I think that's the most important thing that I bring, is that perspective of having done the job.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same mindset of running a business. You know, when as Paul and I talked about me coming into this role, my first reaction was, I don't know anything about the association world other than being on the consumer side of it.
Sure,
correct?
right.
You know? But the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I have a market that I need to serve.
Yep.
I have a product in form of a service that I need to provide. It needs to be meaningful. It needs to drive value. These are all things I know how to do as a business leader. It's just a little bit of different take on it. So that's what I'm trying to bring in, is that perspective of having walked a mile in their shoes, several miles, 27 years worth of miles.
Absolutely,
in those
right.
shoes. Exactly, as well as, you know, say, how do I bring that perspective into the association world, and think about making sure that we have an excellent product that drives value and creates differentiation and creates benefit for the members.
You know, I think it's really nice that you've walked in the shoes of all of your members, right?
Yeah.
You can talk their talk.
Exactly.
That's terrific. So with Right to Repair, HR 1566, remaining one of the aftermarket's most critical advocacy priorities, been going on a long time, right?
It's been, yes.
How do you evaluate? You're relatively new, 6 months, maybe kind of a fresh eyes. How do you evaluate its likelihood of passage, and what will it take to get it across the finish line? And I would add, about a month ago, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it, I interviewed our senator from Ohio, who's a new senator. I don't know if you happened to see that drive time.
Yes.
He said, OE, to make it work in the Senate. Now, he's new to the Senate.
Sure.
He said, listen, the OE guys and the aftermarket folks, you've got to come together.
Yeah.
Maybe bake that into your comments, if you would, if that's, maybe it's irrelevant.
Yeah, no, it's not irrelevant at all, really. I feel very fortunate I've come in at a good time. We probably have more momentum with Right to Repair right now than we ever have, and you're correct, it's been ongoing for a number of years. Now, I will say we've got great momentum. Nothing is guaranteed. You know, we are obviously dealing with a Congress that, you know, has a lot of priorities. They have to spend a lot of time thinking about more than just the things that we would prefer that they be thinking about. And they have a lot of stakeholders that they have to be listening to, and, you know, take in all those perspectives and try to decide what are the right things to be doing. But that momentum's great. What we need from our side is we need everybody to realize that at the end of the day, the importance behind Right to Repair is the impact on the consumer. This is a consumer choice and a consumer affordability issue. And I agree that the aftermarket and the OE need to come together, but they need to come together to think about the benefit of the people who own the cars, be it an individual owner, a fleet owner, et cetera. So what that means is we need everybody to be involved and have a voice. We need suppliers, we need repair shops, we need retailers, we need distributors. Everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction and pushing, and that's the way that we get something done about this. And you're right, the OEs have their perspective and they have their lobbying groups who are trying to make their voices heard, and they're very big, very loud voices. So the more we can come together and talk and say, how do we find common ground? How do we do this that's good for everybody's business and good for the end user will be the right answer. It's a complex situation. Like I said, there's a lot of perspectives that come into play. It's going to be interesting to see how it comes together, but we feel very excited about the progress that's being made on it right now.
Could it happen by the end of 27?
By the end of 27? Possibly. I'm not going to make any promises. If I could predict what the government was going to do, I don't know, I'd probably be in a different job and make a lot more money than what I'm doing right now, but wouldn't we all love that? But like I said, there's a lot of momentum, and I think that we have a great shot, and fingers crossed, maybe we'll have something by then.
I don't know how many rooftops are there for car dealers, 17,000-ish plus or minus. How can they take care of 300 million cars?
Absolutely.
I mean, the mathematics don't seem to work.
Which is all the more important reason why everybody needs to come together and think about what is the solution here. And the repairs, with the influx of cars with ADAS and hybrids and increasing complexity in the car park, that's even more so why you're going to need as many rooftops as possible, as many technicians as possible, working on these cars to make sure that consumers are taken care of properly.
Your LinkedIn profile lists several goals, one of which is bringing clarity to an industry that's evolving through new technology. You just mentioned it. New technology, policy shifts, and changing market dynamics. Mm-hmm. Talk about how you strategize with your team to move those goals forward.
Anybody who looks at my LinkedIn profile might also notice that I'm an engineer by education. Now, I also tell people I must not have been a very good engineer. They took me out of that and into other parts of the organization pretty quickly. But nonetheless, I do have an engineering background, and because of that, it's just part of the DNA that you think about data. You think about like what are my knowns, what are my unknowns, and we make decisions based on data. And really that's where I made the jump from engineering into more of a business lead, because I realized this is a great approach to how you solve business problems, right? So that's what I try to do with my team now, with the teams that I led at Bridgestone, is like, let's be data forward. Let's think about what we know, things that we don't know. What can we safely assume? What are things that won't lead us astray in our direction? And how do we build a strategy around that? The landscape is constantly changing. You can ask any business leader, you put together a plan and a forecast for the next fiscal year, and it's wrong about 5 minutes later because the world has changed, right? So, but when we focus on data, when we focus on what we know, when we keep our eye on the shifting sands of the industry, using that information, we'll probably pivot the right direction. So that's what I like to do with my team, is really work on a database strategy. And it's important that we work with our members on that as well, because we may be able to see what's going on industry-wide, but we have to understand the impacts on their business. We have to understand, where they need us to help lead in certain areas to the betterment of the entire industry. So also we have to be, as you would imagine, very member forward and member facing in everything we do. Events like this give us a great opportunity to do that, but we spend so much time talking to members and make sure that we're listening to their needs, to their priorities, and understanding. And like any good business, you take that information in and then you pivot your strategy. So I like to work with my team in this way. What's our plan? Are we evaluating what's working, what's not working? How do we need to shift? And as I'm learning, with working with government advocacy and legislative issues. There's a lot of constant shifts
Sure.
that we're addressing and pivoting on, and it's very exciting times.
It's exciting times for sure. It's the aftermarket.
Exactly. It's the place to be.
For MEMA Aftermarket members watching this, which hopefully a lot will, what is one strategic action you would encourage them to adopt now to remain competitive and relevant moving forward for their businesses?
I would recommend that they, if they don't already, they probably already do, but they really need to be thinking about the changing complexity in the marketplace based on the technologies that are continuing to advance and becoming a bigger part of the vehicle population out there. But also, there's other factors that are creating complexity for them. There's a lot of consolidation happening in the market. There's a lot of private equity entering the space, not just on the supplier side, but private equity is really increasing their activity at the shop level. And this is changing the entire value chain. It's changing the sophistication of the shop owner. It's changing the way business is going to be done. And I think that they need to be looking at those trends. They need to be investing properly. There's going to be a lot more requirements on how B2B work is done. There's going to be a lot more requirements on how we train technicians to deal with more complex vehicles. And that's going to take some investment on their part. They need to focus on what's making them money now, the benefit of ICE vehicles staying in a strong population for a period of time, like the table stakes stuff that we know is profitable and that we can rely on, but they need to think about how they're investing for that future of the changing of that market and accept that it's probably changing a little faster than we even think that it is.
Emily, with the release of your latest landmark study, Evolution of the U.S. Automotive Aftermarket to 2035, what do suppliers need to be doing to be successful in 2035? So they have 9 years to prepare.
Yeah, this study is really exciting. It's showing that there is considerable growth ahead, about a 3.4% CAGR on growth. But the interesting thing is that's going to be more driven by price and mix than it is on volume. So that complexity that we've been talking about in cars, that's a lot of where that growth is going to come from. There's going to be really a shift, if you think about it, from volume to value. So what I would encourage them to be doing is to think about what their strategies are to be able to service ICE and hybrid vehicles. What are you doing to be more prepared for more cars with ADAS capabilities? How are you thinking about being prepared for that complexity that's going to be out there in the market? And then also a more controlled ecosystem from the fact that data is really going to be king in this, because that vehicle complexity means that data ownership, data availability is going to be a key part of the need of everybody through the value chain. So whether we're successful with right to repair, whether we're not, that data is still going to be important, and access to it one way or another. Somebody is going to have that data to be able to be working on these cars. So for 2035, I would be focusing on just preparing for that complexity and make sure that you can harness the growth that's going to come from it.
It's going to be here before we know it, right?
It absolutely is. It's hard to believe that 9 years will be in a blink of an eye, but I've been around long enough to know that it will be. And
do you think that your members, knowing what you know only after 6 months, are they prepared to be prepared for all the complexities?
I think that they are, from the standpoint of understanding that it's coming. I think the harder part is making the day-to-day decisions of what do we do in our business right now to truly be prepared for that thing 9 years out. A lot of businesses are usually working around a 3 to 5 year planning cycle. So obviously this is 2 to 3 cycles out, which is part of what makes it important for us to do studies like this, to get it on their radar. because it'll be, potentially incremental steps for them to prepare for it. So they need to be thinking about how they build, step 1, step 2, step 3 into those incremental planning cycles. And again, that's the importance of what MEMA's bringing to the table, is to try to say, here's what's a long way off. We want you to do what you need to do today to start preparing for it. So I don't think that they're unaware. It's just the decisions of what do I do about it year 1, year 2, year 3, and on.
I don't expect you to have an answer to this,
Okay.
because it's still, just in the last year, but how does AI play into all this? Clearly no one knows.
Yeah, it's a great question. We have a lot of conversations with members, with the customers of members, to say, is this hype or is it real? And generally I would say the response we're getting is that it's real. We just don't really know how real, how fast. I think there are a lot of companies that are, pretty progressive on the things that they're trying to do, and to figure out if there's truly a value proposition to bringing more of it in. I think there's a great case for it. There's some obvious areas: marketing, content. I think forecasting feels like an area. Maybe some pricing strategy work. There's plenty of places that I think it has a place. People are going to need to tread lightly around security, around not letting it jump in and do too much without being reviewed by real people.
Right.
I think that's the thing, is like trying to figure out how do we make it a tool and not let people get lazy and think that it can just take over and do everything.
Sure. A topic that came up earlier today is just the whole notion of people are keeping their cars longer, especially with new cars costing $40,000, $50,000 on average. And someone had mentioned that, the 2013 car coming in, 13 years old, it is not uncommon, right?
No. Yeah.
Which is great for the aftermarket.
It is great for the aftermarket. It's a huge tailwind for the aftermarket, that the vehicle age is increasing. But like anything, that you're going to see that shift as those new technologies enter. And it is amazing. I think about the fact that, I'm going to age myself here a little bit, but when I turned 16, the car that I drove was a 1970 model, or 72 maybe. It was like a 14-year-old car at the time.
Right.
And I think of the condition of the car I had that was 14 years old, that I was thrilled to have it as 16 to have a car.
Couldn't believe your luck.
Yeah, exactly. A 14-year-old car now feels like a brand new car in some cases for a kid. So there's so much that's gone into the technical and the life cycle of cars that make them reasonable to be driven longer. So it makes sense that we're seeing that happening on top of the affordability. But I think that's why that shift is going to be a little slower than we might think, of all these new technologies coming in. But that population will be bigger pretty quickly.
Yeah. I'm curious, you started, the first time I met you, we were at Apex.
Yes.
How long had you started officially at MEMA before then?
Well, I started November 1st, and I think I left to fly out for Apex on November 2nd.
Yeah, I'm
and
thinking
the first day was maybe the 4th,
yeah,
if I remember correctly.
So November, December, Jan, Feb, March, April.
Yeah.
First impression, 6 months in. I mean, you work at Bridgestone, Firestone, but so you have some aftermarket. What's the vibe of the aftermarket?
Oh, I love the aftermarket. I mean, I've spent plenty of time with OE customers as well. I love the whole industry, but there's something about the aftermarket. I, like most people, ended up in the aftermarket quite accidentally. I needed a job when I was graduating college and ended up at Firestone, and tripped into an aftermarket job at some point in time during the early part of my career, and I thought, wow, this is the place to be. This really is great. I really do love it. And part of what I love about it is it's huge and it's impactful. I mean, the number of jobs, all 50 states, 2.5% of the GDP, it's hugely impactful to our economy, but yet it still feels small. It still feels kind of like a family. It still feels like the place where you can build relationships that are really meaningful and last. And it's great. I love it. And that's part of the reason that I was happy to join MEMA, was because it's an industry I believe in and feel at home in.
The aftermarket is a close-knit community, and everybody knows each other and used to work for each other, and you got to be very careful.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is tradition on DriveTime, Emily, to do something we call lightning round.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're just going to throw out an answer off the top of your head.
Okay.
Number one, what are some of your favorite things to do in Nashville?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you like music, Nashville's a great place to be. You can see any kind of live music of any variety. Most people think country, but really there is almost anything to see there. So I've seen some great shows. Garth Brooks at the Ryman, small venue, nothing but him and an acoustic guitar, fabulous.
What's the Ryman?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's a national
Are we all
thing.
supposed to know the Ryman?
Yeah, exactly. What am I thinking? So the Ryman is, well, most people know Broadway in Nashville, of course. So the Ryman is just behind Broadway. If you're familiar with Broadway, there's Tootsie's, and the Ryman's right behind that. It was originally a church, and it very soon turned into a venue. In fact, they used to do the Grand Ole Opry from the Ryman years ago. But they call it the Mother Church of country music. It's a fabulous venue. So imagine seeing Garth Brooks in a moderate-sized church with an acoustic guitar. It's pretty cool.
What is a value you learned growing up that you still value today?
One of the things that I learned from my dad that has stuck with me forever is that you can do anything you want, you can make any decision you want, but you have to live with the consequences of it. And he really instilled that ownership of decisions with me, which I think is good because I stop and think about things before I do it and think, what's the consequence of this going to be, and is it a consequence I can accept?
We all remember things our dad said, right?
Yes, they're pretty smart.
If your team were to describe you in a word or two or three or four, what would they use? Current team or past teams?
Oh, current or past. That's a good question. I'm pretty collaborative. I tend to trust people until they give me a reason not to. So I think they would say that I'm a trusting and a trustworthy person. They would say that I don't ask them to do things that I'm not willing at some level to do myself, that I make myself part of the team instead of leading from on high, so to speak. So,
do you prefer sweet or savory snack? Ice cream or potato chips?
Oh, ice cream any day of the week.
All right.
I love ice cream. Can't turn that down.
Fair enough. Last question. After a busy, crazy week in the automotive aftermarket, what's a great way to recharge over the weekend?
So I often joke with people that I might be one of the most boring people that you can meet from a personal time standpoint. I love to spend time with my family. We do a lot of traveling, but any given weekend, I just like to be home and like to be with them, and I love a good book. I'm a voracious reader, so if I can just have time to sit in a comfortable chair and read a book, I'm happy. It's a great recharge of my batteries.
Love it. Emily, it's great to have you on AMN Drive Time, sponsored by our great friends at Aishin.
Thank you so much.